Which might have meant there was only one rep for every 50
Yeah,
voters.
yeah, and the same thing can be argued in California. Even when we had one rep for every 2,500, women couldn't vote, and really only white men of age 21 or older could vote in California. So, you know, if you want to take it from that standpoint, representation was closer to probably 800 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we are grossly, could that explain why we can't even get our assemblyman on the telephone? You can't even, you can't get 5 minutes of his time to talk with him?
Well, what's interesting is, I've sent a number of petitions to, my rep and a number of other reps, and even, even the old authorities from England say, you don't even have to access your own rep. You just have a right to the chamber in general. And basically...
You have a right? You're saying every citizen, voter, has a right to walk into the state lower house assembly?
Yeah,
and speak there?
Yeah, before the committee that you want to address your grievance with. Absolutely.
Oh, for a specific committee, not for the whole assembly.
Well, not for the whole assembly, but yeah, for the committee. And you had a right. It goes back to.
What if they don't want to hear us?
Well, that was an old issue back in the day, and the best issue is the right to petition. And there was it's a famous battle that no one talks about anymore, but it was between John Quincy Adams and John Calhoun, and it was on the issue of the right to petition. Mr. Calhoun suggested, yes, you had the right to petition, but it extended only so far as your right to give it to the representative. Well, Adams said everybody has a right to have a hearing upon petitioning. You had a right upon handing a petition. Now, John Quincy Adams, this is after he was president, he went back to the House of Commons, or the House in Massachusetts, and they had 749 people. And they could hear everybody's grievances. They had capacity. And so the battle was over slavery. And people who were abolitionists flooded Congress. And they flooded their state chambers with petitions asking to end slavery. Well, in the end, the Civil War ended slavery. However, John Calhoun won, because after that, people lost the right to petition their reps. Used to be you had a right to petition your legislature, and they had to have a hearing on that. It's so ingrained in American history. Basically, all the colonies were owned by the King of England, and what would happen is he would appoint the governors, and then they would end up having a council that later became a Senate, or sort of a House of Lords. Well, as the populations grew, what would happen is they created a House of Commons, or a lower chamber in each state. Well, the governor appointed the judges, or the crown appointed the judges, and, well, the colonists didn't go to the courts because, well, the courts were pretty corrupt. They were English judges, and it just didn't work for them.
Corrupt courts? You mean they had corrupt courts 200 years ago?
Yeah, it was pretty openly recognized they were corrupt. So what they did was they petitioned their assembly, and the assembly would deal with the problems, and they would deal with it fairly. Because if you didn't deal with the problem fairly, what would happen is they could appeal to the crown. And if they appealed to the crown, potentially the crown would send a ship, and the ship would be loaded with soldiers. And they would end up taxing the hell out of the colonists. So the lower chamber would get the petitions, and they would deal with the problem. Even women, even black people had the right and the ability to petition. They said even people who couldn't vote.
Even black people who weren't considered citizens, right? Now, were they and they could petition?
Yeah, they could, yeah.
And you found cases of that?
Yeah, a wonderful, a man named Higginson wrote a piece for the Yale Law Journal. Excellent. It delineates the entire history of the right to petition. It is one of the most powerful pieces I'd ever read. And what's so powerful about this is John Calhoun believed slavery was a positive right. You had, not only...
Wasn't he the guy that beat somebody with a cane in the Senate chambers?
I don't know.
Or was that Daniel Webster and someone else?
No, and I don't think it would have been Webster either. But anyway, John Calhoun, he was from South Carolina, believed in, the right to have slavery, encouraged the right to have slavery. And he believed that your right to petition extended only so far as to you handing your petition. Adams said no. He said the only two abilities you have to access your government is through your right to vote and your right to petition. You have a right to petition your legislature as a positive right. He lost. And really, they lost the incentive to increase the size of legislatures after the crown left. I mean, you know, it's just one of these perverse things where, you know, you look really state to state.
You would think it would be the opposite.
No. And really, Madison thought it was the opposite, too. In fact, if you look at the 30,000 clause in the Constitution, it's no more than 1 rep per 30,000 because they were worried that people would always, well, they figured that people would demand representation. Well, it hasn't worked out that way. So, you know, I mean, and it just happens to be that California has the most gross underrepresentation.
Because we're 36 million people.
38 million. 36.
Well, you're counting the illegal aliens.
Yeah, if I count illegal aliens, it's 38 million. So, without getting into the topic.
I don't think most people ever thought about it. So you're going to file you filed this lawsuit in Sacramento federal court.
Yes.
You got a case number. Supposing somebody wants to read your brief, where do they go?
Well, I
mean, they're not going to drive up to the federal court in Sacramento and say, "Show me Michael Warnken's suit against the governor."
Two things. One, the court actually, this federal court particularly, is good about scanning these in optically, so they'll have it on a website. But I have a website, CaliforniaCommonwealth.com, and
CaliforniaCommonwealth.com, and they can go there and
yes.
What if they want to support your lawsuit? And
they can certainly go in there. There's a link that'll have a place for donations, and I encourage people, if they want to, they can join. There'll be a document that if you'd like to have a joinder. If you have your own attorney, you can certainly go and get an interpolator. If you think I'm wrong and you think that 80 is too many, I don't mind if somebody gets in and tries to sue and suggests 40. What we don't do is talk about it.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. I've never heard anybody talk about this issue.
This issue has not been talked about. One gentleman, he was a former speaker of the Assembly, he wrote a book on it, Monaghan. Robert Monaghan. He wrote an entire book about it, about 114 pages, and he was suggesting modest increases. He suggested, it was kind of weird, but he suggested that our Senate and our U.S. congressmen be, you know, equal in size. So as we would gain congressmen, you know, and then that way the House would double because they're exactly half the size of the Senate seats. Well, you know, that's kind of silly. I mean, the thing of it is there are constitutionally mandated duties that our House members have. The Federalists noted that they were part of their job is supposed to be watching the U.S. House members. So really, they had a ratio of 10-1 because it said they would be doubly checked. They said each U.S. House member would be doubly checked by the lower chamber. Well, if we got 80 assemblymen and 53 House members, how in the hell can they watch their U.S. House member and do the job that they already can't do? You know, one of the most important and interesting things is that, you know, right now we have federal courts taking over entire segments of our government, the prison system, you name it, federal judges. Well, we have 164 federal judges, and we only have 80 assemblymen? I mean, there's...
I get your point. But would you be satisfied if the federal court looked at your lawsuit and said, "Hot damn, Mr. Warnken, you're correct, and I'm going to order them to reapportion to 250 assemblymen"? Would that...
Oh, I'd be stoked. Any increase to the point would be huge.
But even 250, you still wouldn't be able to access
you know, without a doubt. You
wouldn't be able to talk to them.
Understood.
But so we need what? At least 1,000 assemblymen. Well, realistically, at least 1,000.
Yeah, at least. But really.
But the assembly chambers couldn't hold 1,000.
Well, that's kind of irrelevant. I mean, we have a greater right to representation. You have a right to representation. If it's truly the case that there are more reps then you know, it's too many, whatever you want to call it. Then there's other remedies. We have the ability to split the state if they want to, and I'm not saying they have to either. But the real work that's done, the real work that's done by a legislature is done in the committees. Representatives work and do their duties through their standing committees, their subcommittees.